Fantastic. Well, welcome. I think I've had a chance to introduce myself to most of you this morning, but in case I missed you, I'm sorry. My name is Christy Howe, and I'm the director of the Vigo County Public Library. We thank you for coming this morning to our stakeholder meeting. We have a pretty big celebration coming up in 2016, and we're eager to get started with the planning phase. So we have a couple of guests who are really going to lead us through the meeting today. We have Renee Stanley, who's right up front. She's going to come up here in just a minute. And then Fred Nation is also with us to talk to us more specifically about Terre Haute's Bicentennial rather than the state celebration. The library is probably one of the younger players in the room. So I think that between the Bicentennial of Terre Haute and the state of Indiana, we also have some exciting anniversaries coming up in 2015 for some of our other institutions. So we have 175 years for St. Mary of the Woods, correct? And then we have 150 years coming up for ISU. So the library's just sitting at like 132, so we don't really have anything quite as exciting or dramatic. But give us time, we'll have 150 before you know it. So anyway, thank you for coming this morning. We really hope you'll get some information that will help you start thinking creatively. We have contact information on the handouts in front of you. So when you take this information back home and kind of start thinking about it, you'll know who to call to say, hey, this is what I'm thinking about. This is what I'd love to do. Without anything else, I think I'll bring Renee up here for you. So Renee, come on up, talk to our group. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me. I drove down from Lebanon in Boone County this morning, and when I got up, the forecast, it showed pink over Terre Haute, which means ice. But I didn't see any, thank goodness, so that's a good thing. Let me go in here. Well, Brittany, am I doing it wrong? I clicked on the little slideshow and there it goes. I didn't click it hard enough. Okay, first of all, what one word describes what being a Hoosier means to you? Just anyone. Anyone?
Friendly.
Friendly?
Home.
Calm?
Curious.
Curious, I like that. Those are similar, and I always hear humble. It's so exciting for me to be out. I get to travel all 92 counties and talk about Indiana and things that we're doing that we're all proud of. And that's basically what the Bicentennial is going to be, just a celebration of what we are. The commission was formed about 2.5 years ago by former Governor Mitch Daniels. It consists of 16 members. He appointed Lee Hamilton, former congressman, and former Lieutenant Governor Becky Skillman to be the two co-chairs. And you can see some of those names are familiar, I'm sure, to some of you. It's a mix of people from the private sector, public sector, and not-for-profits. Governor Daniels, I think, did a good job getting a mix of people to serve on the commission, and they are extremely active. They actually look at the legacy projects. Everything we, as the employees, do, they oversee everything we do. It's very important to them that the Bicentennial is celebrated in all ways Hoosier. The key elements, there were two basic key elements that the commission wanted to achieve. They wanted the celebration to be a grassroots effort. They want this to be a celebration that all Hoosiers feel like they took part in. They didn't want it to feel like it was an Indianapolis celebration. So that's why they hired me to reach out and to encourage everyone across the state to celebrate. And then they also wanted to leave a legacy. Let me see what my next slide. Well, I'm going to go ahead and talk about the pillars, but there's something about the legacy we're going to talk about here in a second. They chose 4 key pillars: historical celebration, youth and education, community involvement, and nature conservation. Those are the 4 areas that the commission felt were the most appropriate areas to focus on the celebration. This was the legacy slide I wanted to talk about. In 1916, the legacy left behind from the Centennial was our state park system. Did any of you know that? That's a big deal, and the commission thought, how do we match that legacy? And they came up with the nature conservation with the Nature Trust. This is the only area where we as a commission have funds to reward two communities in forms of grants. It's the Bicentennial Nature Trust. Mitch Daniels pitched in $20 million. Lilly Endowment gave $10 million. So we started out with $30 million to award in grants that have a $300,000 cap per grant, and this is only for new land acquisition. They wanted to make public land accessible for all Hoosiers. And I have a really neat map. I don't think it's on the slide presentation. They wanted public land to be within a 20-mile radius of all Hoosiers. And you can see the yellow circles, those are the 20-mile radius from the Nature Trust projects that are already underway. So you see we're filling in the map. And I don't remember, I know you guys have, gosh, you have 4. You're on top of things. Some counties don't have Nature Trust projects yet, but you do. You have 4, so that's awesome. Those are 4 new areas that you have acquired new public land that your residents will have access to. That's great. Oh, there it is. Mark Becker with the DNR. The DNR, they are overseeing the Nature Trust. So there's no limit on how many projects you have. So if you can think of other land that you'd like to acquire, there is a 1-to-1 match. You would have to come up with matching funds. These are just examples of youth and education. My favorite is North Manchester. 2 civic groups have come together. One purchased the large bison, and they're encouraging the school kids to paint historic scenes on the bison. The other club will weatherproof them and place them around town. We have legacy projects, and that's probably what we're going to spend most of our time talking about. These are all examples of legacy projects. There are no funds available for us to help fund your legacy projects. The legacy projects are ways for you to have parades, festivals, or new projects that you're working on. Your bike park has already been endorsed as a legacy project. And by getting the endorsement, you will be listed on our website. It's indiana2016.org. You will receive free publicity through our website, and we're hoping it's going to encourage tourism across the state. As the media starts to buzz, in about a week, the governor on State Day, December the 11th, he's going to announce the torch relay, and that's really going to be the kickoff of the Bicentennial celebration. And as the media starts to buzz, we're hoping that people will go to our website and they'll see the different activities that are going on across the state, and hopefully they'll want to, venture out and participate. Community involvement. The quilt gardens are in Elkhart County. This is something that they do every year, but for the Bicentennial, they're going to tweak it a little bit to make it significant to the Bicentennial. And I believe they're going to have, for the first time, specifications. It has to be like blue and gold flowers, I believe, or certain quilt blocks that they have to do that are historic. If you have a parade already or a festival, you can't just say, oh, our festival, we're going to have it endorsed. You have to have it significant to the Bicentennial. You can have a guest speaker speak about, your history and maybe where you see your community going in the future. I'm trying to think. They all have to fall under one or all of the pillars. But the application is online on our website. It's very simple to complete. It takes about 20 minutes. And if you need help with that, you can always contact our office. These are the guidelines for the legacy projects. They have to be open and accessible to the public. tied in some way to the Bicentennial, fundable, like I said, we don't have funds to help you out with that, and achievable. An example that I love, I had gone to Montgomery County early on, and they said, well, we've been wanting to replace or rebuild the clock tower on our courthouse. They've been working for 13 years. It was torn down because it wasn't structurally sound, I think in the 50s. And they said, would that be a legacy project? And I said, absolutely. And a lot of times, if donors hear this is your bicentennial project, they might be more likely to pitch in and help. So they applied for the endorsement. They got their endorsement. Historic Landmarks saw that they got the endorsement. They contacted them and said, we're so impressed that you're determined to replace your clock tower and you got the bicentennial endorsement. We want to help out. We will give you $70,000 if you can find a match. So they went back to the commissioners for the 5th time, and they said, you know, this is our bicentennial project. Historic Landmarks have pitched in, and the commissioners said, it's time. You know, we need to help out. The county came up with $40,000, and the city of Crawfordsville pitched in $30,000. So they're going to replace their clock tower. And then, of course, it must also meet at least one of the following: culturally inclusive, creating a legacy for the future, celebratory, or engaging and inspiring to youth and young adults. Are any of you thinking about ideas that you already are doing or new ideas? Endorsement application, this basically lists the same things I've already mentioned. You do receive the okay to use our logo on all of your material. You'll get the official letter from Terre, our executive director. He likes to say that that's really special because it's his autograph. He always makes things silly. And you can download the application on our website. Again, it's very simple. It does ask for a letter of recommendation to be included with your application. Make sure you have someone significant write your letter. Don't just choose, you know, just a random person. Maybe someone in your community. I'm trying to maybe, you know, like your mayor or someone in a club organization, maybe an officer who they have benefited from your project. Progress to date, 88 applications received. This has actually increased. We had a board meeting a couple of weeks ago. We are now over 100 endorsed projects. Some more examples. History and celebration, of course, the parades and festivals. The state archives have applied for a legacy project, and it has been endorsed. Jim Corridon, who is the director of the state archives, is going to place a wreath on the graves of all 43 signers of the state constitution. I'm not going to talk about the bottom one yet. I'm going to wait to torch relay. Have any of you heard about the torch relay? This is a biggie. This is going to be probably the event that most of the people who live here, when they think about the Bicentennial, they're going to remember what happened here. Not all of them are going to have the opportunity to come to Indianapolis. The torch will be lit in Corridon on September the 9th of 16. It will meander through all 92 counties. We want it to go through each county in a way that's uniquely Hoosier, that's unique to your county. I'm from Boone County. It will be in a combine. We're corn and soybean farmers. Rick Mount will probably bounce a basketball and carry it. It will be in a biplane in one county, a Humvee where the Humvees are made. I've been told it's going to go down Raceway Park, 200 miles an hour. On the drag strip. It will obviously go around the 500 track. At the Hoosier Park, they want to strap it to a racehorse. I think it's Monroe County, there's a stone quarry, and they want it to go underwater where they train state police divers. So we went to Purdue. Perry and I met with the School of Engineering at Purdue, and they're going to actually create the torch. They're designing a torch for us. It will have a GoPro camera. It will have GPS capabilities, so people anywhere can log on to the internet and see where it is each day. We're hoping that the news stations will cover it and maybe do a little blurb after the news each night, where is it and how is it conveyed through each county. So be thinking about ways, here that are unique. You will receive a binder, Fred and Brittany will receive a binder from tourism. Tourism, they are overseeing the torch relay. And you will be notified when and where it will enter your county and when and where it will exit. And then you'll have the flexibility on how it meanders through. We would love to see the streets lined with people. We would love for, your high school bands to be out and have it be a true celebration. Any questions about the torch relay? When it arrives back in Indianapolis on October the 15th, there will be a celebration. The torch will light an enduring flame in the new Bicentennial Plaza on the west side of the State House. They're designing a new plaza with a water feature and a time capsule. And every county, I'm not sure yet how, but it will be represented in the landscape. So it's going to be fun. The torch, it was funny, Perry took this exact picture of the torch to Purdue, and he said, we already have a torch, so we want the torch to look just like this torch, but we want it to have all things. They were excited. I thought they were going to go, no, but they were like, yeah, we can do this and we can do that. It will remain lit, so Perry always says we might have to go behind a tree and relight it with a Bic, but it will stay lit. Pretty much did all of these. Okay, any questions about anything we've gone over yet? Okay. Hoosier Insights. On our website, we have a section called Hoosier Insights, and we would love for all of you and for you to encourage friends and family to go on and in 75 words, describe what makes you proud of Indiana, your county, or your town. And it's fun for other people to go on and learn something new about areas of the state that they're not familiar with. Every county has its own page on our website. You can go to our website under resources and the state will appear, and you can hover over each county and you can click on each county and you will find the contact information for the county coordinators. We're working with our web designers right now. Shortly you'll be able, like if you want to do a quilt project, you can put in the keyword quilts and you can look at all the other projects that are already endorsed, and instead of recreating the quilt, maybe you can gain some insight on your specific needs through the projects that are already endorsed.
Question.
Mm-hmm.
Will this slideshow be on that website?
No, but I believe, do both of you have the slideshow, or I can email it?
We can make it available to the.
Okay. Okay. Again, you can add your events to our calendar, and every endorsed project will be part of our events calendar for 15 and 16. So if you have an event, I encourage you to go ahead and fill out the application and get the endorsement now. And that way you will be on our website for 15 and 16. You don't have to wait until 2016. Volunteer, which all of you are here. That's a good sign. We're always looking for partners. Perry has to raise the funds to support the Bicentennial. We're having a commemorative coin created. We're having a coffee table book, the plaza. I'm trying to think what else. Well, the torch relay is very expensive, and we didn't want the taxpayers to have to pay for the bicentennial celebration. So we're looking for corporate support. So Perry popped that little slide in there. And
Volunteering is such an important thing in Indiana.
Whether that's working in the soup kitchen or helping out a neighbor after a natural disaster.
I was gonna say, it doesn't always pop up. Only 2 of the first ladies decided to speak. Sorry. We're a state agency. It doesn't, we don't have high-tech, $5 help. Sometimes it doesn't play at all, so you got to see 2 first ladies. Any questions?
You've been to a lot of counties, and Vigo County is, I'm not sure what size we are, but we're somewhere around top 10 or 12 counties in the state. Among the larger counties, are there any that stand out, and not the very largest, but ones more like us, where you could say, gee, these folks are really well organized, and here's what they're doing?
Hamilton County, they're very organized. They've even hired a part-time person. They have the funds, and they chose to hire a part-time person to kind of oversee. It's not their county coordinator, but their county coordinator hired someone. They formed subcommittees. They have a subcommittee for each pillar, and they have every city in the county is represented on their committee, and she has empowered each of them to come back with legacy project ideas. And I think that's very helpful. The torch relay has its own committee. To do it right, I think it's going to take a group approach.
I'm curious if any other cities in Indiana are also celebrating their bicentennial as Terre, Haute is, and if that's something that could be featured somehow on the website.
Absolutely.
Are there others?
There are, and I can't name them right offhand, but there are several. I'm going to say Washington might be, but there are several. As I go out and about, and basically what you're doing to celebrate your centennial, you can tie in, just make it part. And like in Elkhart County, their 4-H fair is already endorsed. Anything you're doing, you can go ahead and have it endorsed as a bicentennial legacy project. Definitely. What are some ideas that you have to hear before I sit down? I get excited.
Well, we are Art Spaces, Wabash Valley Outdoor Sculpture Collection, and we are celebrating our 10th anniversary next year, by the way, another anniversary. But we're trying to rehab the government campus through our Turn to the River project, and also change there's a city property that's at the river's edge that we're trying to make into an overlook and pool park for access to the river. So we're hoping to, we're doing the design phase for that this coming spring. We're hoping to launch that or complete part of it during the bicentennial year. So that's since it's Terre Haute's and the state bicentennial, to have the government campus be improved by then, we're well on its way, would be really significant. And so that's where our focus will be as far as the bicentennial goes.
Great.
And I don't know exactly how and when to apply as a legacy project, because I have grant applications in the works. I'm not sure what part of it.
I would go ahead and apply.
Just go ahead and apply.
Go ahead and apply, and again, that might, once you have that endorsement, you can put our logo on everything, like your grant application. Everything you're doing, you can use that. Okay, great.
Well, we've kind of been in touch about this, but the library will be looking to have their Wabash Valley community read in some way involved and endorsed.
This is just a random thought, but we just computed the year of the river. A part of the torch run would be nice if we could do it on part of it on the Wabash River.
That'd be awesome.
In conjunction with what Betty said while you were talking about innovative ways to bring the torch through, one of the things that I thought of was one of our businesses here, Hovercraft. would be a fun way
hovercraft.
to, on the river works. Yeah. So,
We also have, all the running championships, so it might be fun to have it run down past the Griffin Bike Park, which is a legacy project. And there's plenty of runners here that could really get around off the river.
Well, I can't go home unless I mention that it'd be great to have Mother Theodore carry the torch for part of the way. She crossed the river. She might reappear on a hovercraft.
or does she want to be accompanied by the madam? This is an inside joke. This is an inside joke, because Mother Theodore Guerin and I, as the portrayer of famous Madam Brown,
Yeah.
do a program together as the Madam and the Saint. So, the two of us might.
On a hovercraft.
On a hovercraft. On the river.
Part of our history.
As part of our 150th, we're actually doing a 4-year celebration from the 150th anniversary of our enabling legislation until the anniversary when we opened our doors. So we struggle, I guess, with what to try to connect, because we're planning obviously lots and lots of things. One of the things that we'd actually talked to the original commissioner about was we are doing we have a book and torch ceremony that's part of our campus culture, but we're actually taking it to 150 places of significance over the 4 years. Just add to alumni events and things to have people pledge their allegiance or their loyalty to the university and renew those kinds of ties and commitments. So finding a way to connect the torch run to the book and torch ceremony may be helpful to celebrate Indiana State's anniversary as part of the torch run as well, as it goes through the county.
That's a great idea, yeah. But it's not 50 more places and.
There's a lot of
We've got
places to stop in Vigo County.
Yeah.
How long is the torch in a town?
It varies. Some communities it's going to pass through, it will spend the night in some counties. It just varies. It involved 5 different agencies to come up with the actual route. And I don't know, but you should be receiving your binders soon, and then you'll know. Thank you.
It's always a good idea. How do you go back? Oh, there we go. Thank you. Thank you so much. Christy, thank you for being our host.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Today, we appreciate it.
We're glad to have you all here.
And special thanks to Bridget Michaels and the library staff who's volunteered with Christy's help here to help us get organized. And that's an important thing. That's what this is all about. My role, by the way, my name is Fred Desch. I think we all know each other. I'm the president of the Wabash Valley Community Foundation. I'm not the head of the Bicentennial celebration. But since the community foundations in Indiana play a special role in the Bicentennial celebration, we have said, well, we will help in organizing this and do what we can to support it. Indiana is unusual in that every county in Indiana, we're the only state, every county is served by a local community foundation. And Lee Hamilton, who is one of the co-chairs of this, has been very involved in that, and they have made special provision for the community foundations to play a role in this. For example, on the Bicentennial Nature Trust, when you do an application, you have a letter from your local community foundation, you get an extra point on the scoring. So in any case, that's why I'm here, and what we're here to do, and you've done such a great job here. Thanks so much for that presentation. I think you already covered a lot of the ideas and opportunities we have, Renee. And just to kind of give a larger picture, would be several things have been mentioned, but just so that you all know. 1816, obviously, the Bicentennial estate. Bicentennial of Terre, Haute. We're probably the largest city in the state that has that dual anniversary. But also we have other anniversaries here in this whole mix. Jumping ahead, and then I'll come back, in 1818, Vigo County, as a county, will celebrate its bicentennial. And next year, in 2015, has already been noted, Indiana State University will have their 150th anniversary. And both the Sisters of Providence and St. Mary of the Woods College will celebrate their 175th anniversary in 1815. So if you look at 1815 to 1818 or 1820 or 2020 in that way, we've got a bicentennial or an anniversary era in this community. So there'll be a lot of things. We're not going to be, intense, I'm sure, as a community in each of those and every year, but there's great opportunity here for us to tell the story. And the story of Terre Haute and Vigo County and all of its institutions. And by the way, what we have here gathered are many of the key stakeholders that will be important in this celebration: in the arts, education, business and industry fields that will have to move this forward. We've done this before as a community, and only a couple of us in the room old enough to remember or have been here probably for the Bicentennial in 1966. I was young, but I was a reporter, just started as a reporter with the Terre Haute Star in 1965, and then through 1966, this was a big deal here in this community. And for example, there was a historical pageant at Memorial Stadium. Memorial Stadium was a different configuration then. It was a horseshoe shape. But there were hundreds of local people in a pageant that told the history of Terre Haute, the Mount of Horse, and things like that went on. And there were all kinds of events through the year. Now, whether we do that kind of thing, that's up to all of us. It may or may not be the appropriate thing to do in 2016. There may or may not be the manpower and the budgets to do all these things. It's really, though, up to the people in this room and others to decide how we best want to do this. This was the picture here was the headquarters of the downtown. And I'm not sure if I remember where that was. Does anybody, Mary Lee or Eddie or whatever? I remember the building, but I don't remember exactly where it was. But it was a big deal. I don't recall that the Vigo County celebration 2 years later was anything other than just noting it. But we have an opportunity here. We have a heritage. Now, what we do have at the Vigo County Historical Society is a large file on all this. So if we have someone interested in looking at that, and I'm sure they have files here at the library too, to put together a little program on that. That might be kind of interesting to do. It might be interesting to do for us. It might be interesting to do for service clubs. So anybody here or anybody knows anyone who would like to do that, that'd be fine too. And we know the university, Indiana State University, is going to be doing programs. I'm sure the Sisters of Providence and St. Mary of the Woods College are going to be doing programs. And to the extent that we can, it would be nice to put these all under some kind of umbrella. Not a controlling umbrella, but an informational umbrella. In many ways, much like what Mary and John did for Year of the River, which is a great model for us. I don't know that we're, as a community, we want to go to that degree. Maybe we do. We ought to think big on this. But I think, what can we do to educate folks here about our history? And a lot of people don't care. Say, I don't care about history. You hear that. And what's history so important for? It was, it's already gone. So, well, the truth is, whatever happened in this community before and our institutions form what we feel about ourselves today, but more importantly, how we talk to our children and our grandchildren about prospects for the future and what we can accomplish. So much has been accomplished here in this state, in this county, in this community. So many great people have come from here and accomplished so much here and left here and gone to other places to do that. And this is an opportunity to tell our children that, you know, yeah, you're going to have a Terre Haute, but that doesn't mean you can't be hugely successful or moderately successful or just dang on it successful. Not everybody's going to be, you know, not everybody's going to be St. Mother Theodore or Chauncey Groves or whatever. But we got to be contributing members to our society. And the fact that we're here, we're standing on the shoulders of people who have come before us and have accomplished great things. And there are great stories. It's all about the stories. We start to tell the stories. People will be interested, fascinated about what's happened here, and some will be inspired by that, and some will be able to move forward with that in mind. We've talked about these anniversaries that are upcoming and that era, and it's up to us to decide how we want to do this, and that's where we come to this point, and that's committees and how to get involved. The model for this on the sheet in front of you, we all think would probably be best as the 4 pillars here of history and celebration and youth and education, nature conservation, and community involvement. Of those, the nature conservation is the area where we really are already the strongest, but there's still plenty of opportunity. The Bicentennial Nature Trust, as Renee talked about, is providing matching money for the purchase of more land in our community. The Vigo County Parks and Recreation Department has been the leader in that, and Riverscape is another one. We're working together, preparing a rather large one for consideration next spring. The ones we have so far are small, but all important to add land to our park system or to our land conservation. And by the way, it's just for land conservation. That is, you've got an idea, well, wouldn't it be nice to build this, or wouldn't it be, that? No, those don't apply. This is just for land. But there might be, there are other ideas. We have landholders in here. There might be some people who say, we know somebody who has this land that might be willing to donate it. That could be a good thing. And whether it's within the program or outside the program, hopefully this will spark ideas about our community in the future. This is a first meeting of interested stakeholders. Now what we need to do from here forward is to move along and say, okay, I would like to serve on a committee, or I want to continue to be involved. And we'll need to evolve the structure and chair people and the committees that will come out of this. And we really need the institutional membership that all of you have in planning all this, because it'll be the institutions, it'll be the groups, the clubs, the organizations that make this work. It's not going to be that this committee itself is going to do big projects. Maybe we will, but the bulk of it will be existing events that are existing organizations that have events that will theme them through the next few years toward a bicentennial, to a historical theme. And there's great opportunity here. There's endless opportunity here in our history that covers virtually everything from Madam Brown to the saint. You couldn't have a wider range than that. Saints and sinners there. So, having said that, what we're talking about is having a larger meeting here in a couple of months to take this meeting and widen out the pool and get more people involved, and give an opportunity for any citizen in the county who wants to be involved to come here and find a way to be involved. That's the way we're going to be successful. It's not like we have huge budgets or anything. If we need some money for something, we'll find the money one way or the other. But it's really important to see this as a grassroots organization and ripple out from this. We know you're interested, but we need your help in making this of interest to other people and to other stakeholders. So what we'd like for any of those that are here today to, first of all, I'd just like a show of hands, how many want to keep being involved in this? Okay, I don't think we could ask for anything more than that. So in terms of what committees or what you'd like to work on, it would be helpful if you'd give us a note, or Brittany, I think, is prepared to take some of this down here and say, okay, here's how I would like to be involved. And then we'll have some contact here moving forward to let everybody know how this is shaping up. We don't have any particular plan for how we're going to have the structure here. I think we're open to suggestions on that. We're open to, if there's somebody who would like to say, I would like to be in charge of the run, or I'd like to be the chairman. If somebody would like to be, we're happy to do this, to have that under consideration. This is a great opportunity. There's some talented people in here, and there are a lot of talented people in the community who are not here that couldn't come today, that would like to be involved. So I'm open for questions and comments here. Mary, our suggestions.
Thinking, the website that we did for Turn to the River, Year of the River, was designed by Miller White, and I believe that they would be willing to let us use that same, I'm looking at John because he might have an opinion about this too, but to take that and revamp it for Terre Haute's Bicentennial website. And as far as collecting events from different groups and all that kind of thing, it's a really good model. And we actually still own the site. We own the domain right now, which obviously we have to buy a new domain. But the way that we maintained that was each of our Arts Liana and Art Spaces had sort of a role with maintaining that website. I'm not saying we would be the ones to take it on. I'm just saying that the different aspects of maintaining it can be divvied up among organizations. And whether Miller White rehabbed it to become the Bicentennial website, or whether someone else with website knowledge did, I would be happy to approach them about could we use that for that.
Thank you, Barry. If you would do that,
It's a long way towards getting something done.
That's key. Thank you for that offer. That's great. John, do you have any comments on that?
Well, it was interesting listening to Renee's, and I haven't been to Indiana2016.org yet, and we definitely go there. But I think that kind of what our design, as we were looking through there, the functionality of it was similar intent. So I think that very well might be a good template to hand off for this.
Any more questions, suggestions?
Just want to offer an invitation to anybody that wants to come down to the museum and look at our photographs and our archives, and I know the library also has information, but it might spark an idea for some of you, for your organizations, about what you might do, not the same thing, but give you an idea for something for 2016. So you're welcome. We're open every day, with the exception of Monday, from 1 to 4 in the afternoon. We're also there in the morning if you want to call, to be sure that we're not out at a meeting or something like this, but you're welcome to come down and use our information, and I'm sure Brittany will say the same thing about the library, Christy. Yeah.
Any more questions or comments?
Fred, is there an opportunity to link up with Wabash Valley Visions and Voices for a project, since the community at large brings in, they have opportunities where they set it up, people can bring in their photos and scan them, and maybe we could have a bucket or a file or whatever they call it for the Bicentennial.
What do you think about that? That would be possible. They're part of your...
Cinda May is the head of that, and they're working with us on Bicentennial, obviously. They're looking at doing some oral history projects, similar to StoryCorps on NPR type thing, of capturing some oral history type things, and they're obviously constantly working to digitize information. So I'm sure Cinda would be happy to be engaged in some way.
Because we could be
Brittany
a
and I
site.
are part of WV3, and we recently celebrated an anniversary with Wabash Valley Vision Voices too. We did a lot of scanning days, and I think people do enjoy that. So I think that's definitely a relationship we want to make sure we cultivate through this.
In my understanding, Renee, for your information, we're going to Provost Maynard is the co-chair of our Bicentennial along with me. We're going to set up a meeting with Terre. I've already touched base with Terre a little bit. But our library has the state's centennial and sesquicentennial records from there. I don't know if it's all the records, but we also have the state writing project that was done in all 92 counties, and we do have all 92 counties writing projects
That's the WPA
that were
project.
done as part of the WPA.
Terry
So
won't
it's the
leave.
counterpart to
Terry
the.
won't leave if he starts digging into all that. Just warning you.
But
So should we tell him or not?
I love it.
Cinda says that we're one of the few libraries, states that have all of their counties together. So we'd like to talk to you about that paperwork as well, you can get those records as well as, I guess the history of the writing project is really, really rich. And it's from every county's perspective. So, that's cool.
And we know the Sisters of Providence have a good archive from the founding and the observations of Mother Theodore and her sisters when they arrived here. You know, for personal reasons, I had reason to look at some of that recently, and the sisters, Mother Theodore, in fact, personally started St. Vincent's School at 5th and Walnut. That would be in the lot south and adjacent to St. Joseph's Church. St. Joseph's Church was already there when they came here. In fact, Mother Theodore and her band went to Mass there before they went across the river mountains. There was no grade, no bridge. But anyway, Mother Theodore observed that the school there was good because it was away from the hustle and bustle of downtown Terre Haute. When that church was built, I think in 1834, it was observed there was one Catholic in Terre Haute. It's not the current church, but it still was a nice church. And then later on, in 1840, in the 1840s, there began to be quite a few more Catholics, and the reason there were is because Wabash Area Canal was being built, and there were Irish laborers who were coming to Terre Haute to live in Terre Haute. And then, in the history of all of this, and I think a sensitive, politically correct way that Sister Mary Borromeo wrote it, the next migration of Catholics into Terre Haute were Germans. In the late 1840s, early 1850s, there was a great German immigration because of revolutions, mostly in Europe and all this, so it became a destination. But as opposed to the Irish, the Germans were better educated.
They were also
But she handled that very well.
They were also brewers.
Well, there was that too.
That made it very popular.
But anyway, those are the kind of things that when you go back and look at all this, we don't think about these things. There's really good stories there, and people will appreciate those stories. Again, it's all about storytelling. I think that's what we have to figure out how to do this.
In regards to storytelling, to using social media somehow with our purpose here, with, the website is great, but I think people will also interact significantly with maybe a Facebook page.
Some communities have a Facebook page.
I think that would be, there are so many pages out there now that people share photos or stories
Sure.
about Terre Haute now, so maybe I think we have a captive audience already of people who will go.
Either
to those
using the
pages.
existing ones or forming a new one, or both. Ways to do that. Good suggestion.
Also Instagram. We have, if you're on Instagram, we have Indiana 2016 on Instagram. I'm a photographer, so
That's a good one to
as I
share photos,
travel,
yeah.
I post pictures from across the state.
Well, we'll look for our Terre Haute picture.
Oh, there are some beautiful ones of your courthouse that I took. I love your courthouse.
It's a great
Oh,
courthouse.
gosh.
Anything else? Any other comments? Tom Rozowski has joined us. Tom, I don't know if you came prepared to say something, but we always like to hear from you about your unique.
I don't know if Christy and Brittany mentioned the endeavor that we're engaged right now with the George Kessler project. As some of you know, George Kessler developed a comprehensive parks program for the city of Terre Haute. He was actually a nationally renowned landscape architect who did parks plans for many major cities, including Kansas City, Memphis, Syracuse, New York, and 4 cities in Indiana. A lot of you might be familiar with his name from Kessler Boulevard in Indianapolis. He was responsible for the plan for Indianapolis's parks in the early part of the 20th century, as well as Fort Wayne, South Bend, and Terre Haute. And he created a parks plan for Terre Haute. He actually came up with the original design we discovered recently for Fairbanks Park, which had been dedicated just 2 years before he was hired by the city. And Deming Park was part of his plan, as was the construction of the stadium on the east side. It was a magnificent and ambitious plan, and like many of these city plans that he put together, were never fully realized. And one of the most amazing components of the plan was his plan for Paul Dresser Drive, which really foresaw the greening of the east bank of the Wabash River, which is starting to take place now with the plans that ISU is involved in. And Pat Martin had discovered a large map, and when I mean large, it was 5 foot by 11 foot of his original plan for Paul Dresser Drive, which was to circumvent the city. He basically had this boulevard with a grassy median and trees that was going to circumvent the city and link a lot of the major parks. And that included some municipal parks. The plan for Deming Park was part of this. And also some private parks. A lot of you might be familiar with Forest Park, which is currently leased by Terre Haute Bank, and was originally owned by the Hullmans from 1930. That's 500 acres. That's pretty much the way it was in the early part of the century, when it was considered an amusement park. Of course, amusements back then had to do with picnics and canoeing and getting out in nature. And there was an actual trolley line that ran to Forest Park in those days. That was on Paul Dresser Drive. And so this is an amazing undertaking that I think will inspire a lot of our discussion going forward for the Bicentennial, not only around the river and the future of the Wabash and how it connects with the city, but also what I think we would all agree is one of the greatest assets this city has, and its park system, the municipal park system that exists here. And moving forward with the challenges that most municipal budgets are facing going forward, and the question of how we can support and guarantee the integrity of those parks going forward into the next generation. So with the great help of Christy, Brittany, Anna, and the Friends of the Library, we've started to restore this map and a number of the other blueprints from the original Kessler plan. Currently, they're being worked on at the Lilly Library in Bloomington on the IU campus by a paper conservator there. And our plan is to have them all ready for display and sharing with the public for the Bicentennial year. And we've just received some private funding, very generous gift from Harriet McNeil, who I'm sure a lot of you all know. And the Friends of the Library is going to help us out as well and put us in a position where these documents and blueprints can not only be preserved, but shared with the public. And I think, like so much of the planning here, so much of this has to do with public education and awareness and getting people not only proud of the journey that Terre Haute has taken over the past 200 years, but also looking forward in terms of the city it can potentially be. So with the help of the library whose mission, after all, is essentially public education and opening up discoveries to people across all demographics and portions of Terre Haute. I think it's going to be a very successful initiative and fit very well with the plans here for the Bicentennial celebration.
How will they be shared? Will they be exhibited or electronic?
Christy can speak to that.
Well, I think that our primary focus is going to be a physical exhibit display. So we'll be working with Jim and Mary to design a way to appropriately display them so that they're highly visual but also able to be interacted with. We don't want it to be something that's up high in the lobby where, you know, it's maybe magnificent to view, but you can't really get up close and personal with it, so.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Fred.
Any other comments? Well, thank you all for coming, and we're off and running now. We depend on your support and your ideas and your energy to drive this forward. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Fred.